We have some news about special counsel Jack Smith, this man right here. Donald Trump said recently that he would fire Jack Smith, quote, within 2 seconds of taking office. Well, we found out that he may not have that opportunity. The reason is that the Department of Justice, where Jack Smith works, cannot prosecute a sitting president. Fox News is told that Jack Smith will be gone from his post as special counsel, meaning the cases will be gone before Trump takes the oath of office at noon on January 20th. This is the documents case, though that was dropped already by Judge Eileen Cannon back over the summer, and it's on appeal, but also this case for Trump's alleged efforts to try to overturn the 2020 election. So given the fact DOJ policy says you cannot prosecute a sitting president, expect Jack Smith's cases to be done. The last case, and I'll end on this, is that Atlanta case that deals with the 2020 elections. That's a local Georgia case. We've seen over the last year how that has played out with Fonnie Willis, Nathan Wade. That has many problems, many different delays. So the bottom line for my story to all of you right now, Donald Trump's legal problems have essentially all gone away since he won last night. Harris.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. We got to talk about more Democrat outrage over Trump beating Kamala Harris in this election, okay? He stomped Kamala Harris, okay? For as much as people are talking about Kamala Harris losing to Trump, the reality is that Trump actually just beat Kamala Harris, okay? Let's be real. Trump ran an amazing campaign from start to finish. He pulled off the greatest comeback that we've ever seen in political history. He just flat out beat Kamala, right? Let's be real, okay? And Democrats are extremely salty about this because they're already now being adversarial towards President-elect Trump, okay? Before the man can even get in office, you already have Trump deranged Democrats like Letitia James and Kathy Hochul. Letitia James being the Attorney General of New York, who basically tried to bankrupt Trump's businesses, and Trump has appealed that ruling, and basically Trump is probably going to win that appeal because Letitia James essentially weaponized the state of New York to try to prosecute Trump for fraud, for doing something that basically every real estate investor does, right? So again, that's why it's probably going to get overturned. And then you have Kathy Hochul, who is the governor of New York. She's coming out here and basically demanding that Trump cut taxes for the rich. And yes, I said that correctly. The Democrats are demanding that Trump cut taxes for rich liberals in New Jersey and New York because Trump in his first administration actually raised taxes on the rich that are living in these blue states, right, with high taxes, okay? And that is what Trump did, and they're demanding that Trump cut the taxes for rich liberals, right? That's what they're demanding. And also not stand in the way of New York and their woke agenda. Basically, they're already threatening Trump before he could get into office. Take a look.
So here we are. We've studied their platforms. We've identified certain possibilities, fact patterns. We've created contingency plans. So no matter what the next administration throws at us, we're ready. We're ready to respond to their attacks. We're ready to respond to any attempts to cut or eliminate any funding to the great state of New York, as the governor outlined. So despite what has happened on the national stage, we will continue to stand tall in the face of injustice, revenge, or retribution. We will continue to protect our most vulnerable and marginalized amongst us, because it is my sworn duty and responsibility to lead that fight, working with the governor of this great state, Kathy Hochul. This is not the time to be fearful, New York, but faithful and steadfast, knowing that I, as the Attorney General, along with my entire team, we are guardians of the law, and we are prepared, my friends, to fight back. Thank you.
President-elect Trump needs to repeal his elimination of the state and local tax deduction. He also needs to support our ongoing efforts to support our transit, support the Gateway Tunnel, the 2nd Avenue subway, and fund major critical infrastructure, again, particularly the MTA. And also to back our critical economic development projects, such as those funded by the CHIPS and Science Act, which is intended to bring manufacturing back home from China and South Asia and create thousands of jobs in our state, as is occurring with Micron. And I will work with him or anybody, regardless of party, on these kind of efforts that I know will benefit the state of New York. However, if you try to harm New Yorkers or roll back their rights, I will fight you every step of the way. New Yorkers are resilient. We fought the first time around and we'll fight again.
Yeah, so this is hilarious, okay? Because the Democrats have a whole lot of cojones to come out here and to threaten the president-elect, okay? Be hostile towards President Trump before he can even get into office, while at the same time making demands for favors, okay? Hochul says Trump needs to repeal his elimination of the local state tax deduction, which again is something that Trump got rid of. Basically, again, Trump raised taxes on the rich liberals in blue states like New York because they have high local and state taxes, and they used to be able to deduct the taxes they paid to the state from their federal taxes, but Trump got rid of that, okay? Like Trump literally raised taxes on the rich, and that's something that Democrats claim they support, except apparently they don't support it when it comes to taxing the rich in their own state, right? Again, it's just hilarious how that works, okay? So it's just funny because how can you threaten the man while at the same time demanding that he do you some favors? Yo, this is crazy. This is crazy. These people have supported politically persecuting Trump, but now that he's president-elect, they're still being hostile towards him while saying, no, you got to do me some favors, right? They're making demands. Again, it's insanity. It really is. So that being said, speaking of political persecutions, it seems as if they're going away, okay, for the most part, when it comes to the criminal cases, because Jack Smith has come out and said, well, now that Trump is president-elect and the Department of Justice has a policy of not prosecuting the sitting president, basically the cases are going to have to go away, namely the January 6th case and the classified documents case. Now, the classified documents case has already kind of went away. It's been dismissed, but Jack Smith was going out of his way to try to revive that case. And now he's saying, well, Trump is essentially president-elect, and I'm going to get fired because Trump has already said that he's firing Jack Smith, like, as soon as he gets into office. I'm just going to fire myself first, and we're going to unwind these cases and just be done with it, right? So that's what's happening right now. And I want to react to this clip from CNN featuring our boy Eli Honig, who is not a Trump supporter by any stretch of the imagination, but throughout all of Trump's political persecutions, this guy has been extremely fair to Trump when it comes to giving his honest legal opinion. And that has pissed off a lot of the propagandists on MSNBC who basically want to say, screw all legal norms. Let's just weaponize the system to throw Trump in jail no matter what, right? Eli Honig has not gone that far, right? Because he's not that deranged, okay? And once again, he's going to keep it all the way 100 when it comes to the prospects of seeing President-elect Trump in jail, which basically is not happening, right? It's not happening according to him. So without further ado, let's get into it.
I mean, Paula, can I just ask you in terms of your reporting, given how the polls showed this would go, given that the Trump campaign didn't think this would go this way, given that the Harris campaign didn't think this would go this way, I mean, did Jack Smith have this all sort of as a possibility really prepared? Or is he also, just as human being Jack Smith, reacting to this in the moment and trying to figure it out?
So in speaking with my sources, they were not aware of any discussions that had happened prior to today and said this was really the first time there had been formal discussions. But everyone who's been looking at the polls knew that this was a possibility, right? I mean, Trump has been asked what would he do regarding Jack Smith if he was reelected. But I'm told that the formal discussions, according to my source, have begun in earnest today. And it's going to take them several days to figure out exactly what this looks like and what they'll do. I'm also told not to expect likely any court hearings, that these would likely be filings, if anything, that would try to resolve these cases.
So, Ellie, look, we've been talking about this for years now, okay? We've been talking about this for years. Trump's appeared in courtrooms. We've all gone and sat in courtrooms where Trump has appeared in downtown New York. He's actually scheduled to appear in a New York courtroom in just under 3 weeks to receive a sentence for his conviction on 34 counts of falsifying business records. So what happens to all of those cases? Is that even happening as a sentencing, or is that just gone?
Well, Aaron, I do think the state sentencing, now we're getting away from the DOJ federal cases that Paula was talking about, but I do think that state sentencing will proceed on November 26th. The reason is the judge in that case, Juan Merchan, originally had scheduled the sentencing for September, which would have been before the election. And then in a somewhat surprising ruling, he said, actually, I don't want to do anything that might impact the election, therefore I'm going to put it off until after the election. So now impacting the election is no longer a concern. But this will be a surreal moment. We are going to have the president-elect, not just a former president, but now the president-elect going into a county-level court to receive his sentence. But I do want to stress this. No matter what the sentence is that Judge Merchan pronounces, if this goes ahead in a few weeks, it's almost entirely symbolic and formalistic. There is no way that the president-elect will be locked up. Even in an ordinary circumstance, he would probably be allowed to appeal before he has to serve a sentence. So it'll be an important moment, an interesting moment, but anyone who's thinking Donald Trump is going to be locked up needs to just let go of that fantasy.
Classified documents, misuse, hanging out in the bathroom, who knows what they were. At Mar-a-Lago, black and white case, you had the January 6th case, which there had been years of adjudication and back and forth, now into what was an official act and what wasn't.
Yeah.
Day in and day out. And now what happens?
So
this woman sounds so devastated that these cases are falling apart, right? That they're going to go away. And all of them are going away. I mean, we know that the Fani Willis case is basically not going to happen. I mean, she basically destroyed that herself. Okay, so you have the New York case, the hush money case that was totally BS. That, by the way, is probably going to get overturned anyways on appeal, right? So you have that sentencing coming up. And Eli Honig is saying, well, even if they sentence him to jail, he's not going to jail, right? Like, that's not happening, okay? And that case is going to fall apart. I mean, it would basically be a constitutional crisis, right? Could you guys imagine if they actually tried to lock up the president-elect? Again, it's just not going to happen, right? These things are not going to happen at all. I wouldn't be surprised if they go out of their way to try to make it go away on its own, right? In the sense that they may say, hey, you know what? We're just going to give Trump a slap on the wrist, probation or something like that. I'm not even sure they're going to do that, okay? Who knows? But again, you know, if they actually try to lock him up, that would be a constitutional crisis, okay? An absolute crisis. And I don't think that Democrats really want that type of smoke, especially after Trump just won this election in such a dominating fashion, because the American people essentially said that despite the political persecutions, despite the BS convictions from the New York hush money case, he still should be president of the United States. This is what the American people said. The American people have spoken. So if they actually try to lock him up, if they continue to politically persecute him, it will only hurt the Democrat Party as a whole, right? It would show that they're the ones that are actually the real authoritarians, right? The fascists, okay? So I don't think they want that type of smoke at this point. It would only make the Democrat Party even more unpopular.
first of all, this is an astonishing result if you just sit back and think about it. I mean, these are two of the biggest prosecutions the Justice Department has ever brought. Neither of them will see the light of day. Neither of them will get to trial. Neither of them will get to a verdict. Here's what Jack Smith, I believe, would be discussing as between what can happen between now and January 20th. He's not going to be able to have a trial, but a big question is, will he issue a special counsel report like we saw with the Mueller report, the Durham report, the Robert Hur report? The special counsel regulations say he is supposed to file a written report when he's at the end of his case. Now, ordinarily, you'd wait till after your trials. That's not going to happen. But I want to see, are we going to see a Jack Smith report between now and January 20th. One other point I want to make about this new reporting that we got from Paula Reed, that Donald Trump is going to fire Jack Smith, and he accepts that. Note the contrast, because 4 years ago when the Biden administration took over, and I know Kate will remember this, they inherited a special counsel that I'm sure you were not fans of, a guy named John Durham.
John Durham into Hunter Biden.
Into the origins of the Russia investigation, and he was a Trump. And what did the Biden administration do? Nothing. Hands off. They let him finish his job. He took into 2023, complete hands off. And Donald Trump said, I'm firing Jack Smith in 2 minutes, to quote him. Right. I should say there's a little bit of a difference because DOJ policy says DOJ cannot prosecute the sitting president, which Trump will be in a few
now
months.
let's just say, and we don't know, but there is a report. Okay, if there's a report, I'm just thinking back because you mentioned Ben-Hur. The Ben-Hur report was maybe no one remembers anything was in it except for one thing. They remember that he said that Biden was not able to remember things and that Biden might get off because people would see him as an old man who didn't have a memory. And that was what stuck with the public. That became part of an important narrative that led into the debate and the whole thing. So I'm just saying a report can have influence.
It can, and I think that, the Hur report fed into a pre-existing narrative that was already starting to pull Biden under. So, I think we have to recognize that it wasn't the Hur report alone that, kind of generated this. And I think depending on when we saw a report from Jack Smith, we will see where Trump is politically. But yes, absolutely, these reports can certainly have political impact. I think, Ellie and I were talking about this earlier this morning. The thing that concerns me here is, we talk a lot about legal precedent, but the political precedent that's being set here by the firing, the dismissal of this special prosecutor. We're essentially saying, elected officials are above the law. The candidate, the president-elect, is above the law. And the message that sends, the kind of political precedent that creates, I think is a really dangerous thing.
Yes. I'm sorry I'm laughing. I'm laughing because the trailer for Ben-Hur is running on my phone. I meant Robert.
I knew you meant Robert. I was like, wow.
Ben-Hur was Charlton Heston or something.
Ben-Hur report.
Sometimes you can just do with the chariots have arrived.
It's been a long few days.
Okay. All right. Let's talk about Mar-a-Lago because, Brad, Mar-a-Lago goes away in this case. Mar-a-Lago was the one that was considered by whatever the political persuasion, whatever people, that was a black and white case. That one ostensibly is going away too. And that's, of course, linked to Eileen Cannon, the judge who has been put forth as possibly an attorney general nominee for Trump.
I would argue they've been adjudicated. 70% of Americans thought these cases were politically motivated.
With the jury of public opinion.
And the jury is the largest jury that's ever sat in the United States, and it happened yesterday in the ballot box. The public, and plenty of people have misgivings about Donald Trump who voted for him yesterday. I think that's another thing we have to acknowledge. And in spite of that, they felt like Kamala Harris represented a greater threat. And so I think Jack Smith should take his cases and go away. That's what the public told him to do yesterday.
Yeah, that is exactly what the people voted on, right? They voted to tell Jack Smith to kick rocks, right? He should kick rocks, go about your business, right? You're fired, right? That is what they voted for. And again, that is what the Democrats and the liberals who are upset about this on this panel, this is what they're missing, okay? This does not say that any elected official is above the law. What it says is that these cases should have never been brought against Trump in the first place. That's what it actually says, okay? They should have never been brought. And the fact that Jack Smith is so willing to give up just because Trump won tells you everything you need to know about how he really felt about him. The whole point of the cases was to try to lock up Trump, to try to get him convicted before the election, to sway the outcome of the election. That was the whole point. But because they failed to do that, in many ways they failed, now it's like, well, what's the point, right? What's the point, okay? Which is similar to what is happening in Atlanta with Fani Willis. Fani Willis, after it became clear that she was not going to get that case to go to trial before the election, she didn't give a damn. She just started saying all types of reckless stuff that put the case in even more jeopardy because the point was not to seek justice. The point was to politically persecute the president and to sway the outcome of the election. And when that became impossible for them to do in regards to having a trial and getting him locked up and convicted, they gave up. They gave up. And that's what's happening here. So again, it's just funny how that works because at the beginning of this year, guys, again, it's always so crazy to go back and to think about where we were at versus where we're at now. And it really shows you how God works, right? I'm so serious, okay? We thought that they were going to pull Trump off the ballot. We thought that they were going to convict him, at least in one of these serious cases, right? Like one of these federal cases, the Fani Willis case, okay? We thought they were going to get him on something. There was no way they were going to allow Trump to win, okay? That's what a lot of people thought on both sides of the aisle. Fast forward, basically 11 months later, none of these things worked. None of these things worked. It really shows you how powerful God is, right? I'm just saying. I mean, there's nothing else that I can come up with to explain it. The president was almost assassinated, guys. He survived literally everything. Everything. Now, again, knock on wood, right? He still has 2 months before he takes office, so he's not out of the woods yet. And even if he takes office, you know, we still have to hope and pray that they actually go out of their way to protect him, okay, and to make sure that he stays safe, okay? But still, this man has overcome every single obstacle. And I think that Trump's story really should be a story that people look at as a story of perseverance, of never giving up and fighting back no matter what. And that is what's so great about this story, guys. This is probably one of the greatest stories in American history, to be honest with you. It really is. And it's something that each and every last one of us should be inspired by. I know I'm inspired by it, right? No matter what you're going through in life, no matter what obstacles you're going through, you can look back at this story and say, I can overcome it, right? I can still keep pushing. If I keep pounding, if I keep fighting, I can get through it. And that is what this story really says to me, right? It's just amazing how all this worked out. Let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.